Hello guys, I've recorded this video 3 times now, so let's see if I get it right this one time more. So we're going to be talking about core work. We're going to be switching on the core properly. So when you go to Pilates or yoga classes, they often say things like contract the muscles back towards the spine, or they will say switch on your core or zip up, and we'll be calling it zip up today actually. But and you think that you're switching on the core muscles properly, but then you have lower back problems and they feel uncomfortable, and the front of the muscles in the body don't feel right in the legs, and you know that you feel tired. If you imagine like the body like a maypole or a tent, and the tent has guy ropes that keep it upright, and if one's tied to the tent pole, will have to, will fall or it will snap. Or that's kind of how your muscles are working. If one's really tough one side, then to get yourself back up, to get yourself level, another set of group of muscles that shouldn't really be working this hard is having to pull you the other way. So you want to make sure all those guy ropes are working together. If you think about it, that's the best way I can think about it metaphorically. But the thing is, if you do have a poor core strength, you will find that you have lower back problems. And also, when you have poor core strength, you tend to find you have glutes that don't activate. And the front of the body is very tight here, and it's very tight here, and often it can travel up into the neck. So if you are watching this video and you want to switch on your core, it might even be worth doing some of the glute activation videos that are on the library, because you might find that your glutes aren't active either. So if you've got a weak core, just check that the glutes are working as well. Now, let's talk about the makeup of the body and how we activate that core. So if you think about, I'm going to talk about from a woman's perspective, we have 2 exits at the bottom of the body, and in between those 2 points, that is where the tailbone sits underneath the body, and it's called the perineum. So if you kind of think about squeezing your muscles around the base of your tailbone and kind of pulling those 2 exit points together, that's the first activation point of your core. Now, if you think about the rest of from the belly button down towards the tailbone being a lift shaft, and what you've done is the elevator is kind of pulled, as you've pulled those 2 exit points down together and inwards, is pulled that lift to level 1. Okay, now if you think about bringing the hips together, you're not going to get the hips together, but think about contracting the muscles to try and bring the hips together to kiss, up and in. That's going to be your level 2, so floor number 2. And then if you think about pulling up, inwards and up towards underneath the rib cage, that's your floor 3. So I'm just going to relax my muscles so you're not going to see anything, but you might even want to close your eyes to practice this. Think about the 2 exit points coming together and squeeze underneath the carriage of the body in towards the centre line of the body, then pull the 2 hips together and pull the muscles back towards the spine, but not necessarily touching the spine, and then pull in like you're wearing a corset and a belt, and then you're going to find that the whole of everything's active. And you'll also find that you can feel the muscles all around, sort of in the womb, all around that kind of thing, kind of on an activation level here. Also, you'll feel you're very upright. So you know if you're doing it right, because your spine will go into a very straight position. You'll feel very supported, so it doesn't matter what you do up here, the bottom half of your body doesn't tend to move. And if you relax that, you'll find your lower back will slump out. So that's your first that's your switching on. That's how you switch on those muscles. And what we'll call it zipping up. Because the way to think about it is not that it's just coming level 1, level 2, level 3. Think about it coming back as well. So you're coming in and back, in and back. So it's kind of moving diagonally up the body. So you're pushing back towards your spine and in, up and back. Okay. Now if we lay on the mat, just take your body so that you are in a kind of neutral position with the spine. You're not arching and you're not trying to push your lower back down to the ground. Now, sometimes you kind of need to engage your lower back for particular reasons, but when you do this, when you're doing core work, sometimes you can make those guy ropes out of balance and all the tension's wrong. So make sure your spine's at that neutral position, and just spend a minute, well, maybe not a minute if you don't need it, but just spend a couple of seconds finding that neutral point and feeling that kind of settle. Now, if you put your hands on your hips, around your hip bones, you're going to notice if you start to rotate your spine in any way when you're doing these exercises. So think about having those hands there and holding you steady almost. Now think about activating the perineum. Think about pulling the hips together and then pulling up underneath the rib cage, but all of it back at the same time. And that is your core muscles activated straight away. So Note though, I've got a loose top on, but note though, there's still a gap underneath my back. I've not rounded the back down, my hips haven't moved. So to activate your core, maybe even just to start with, you 1, 2, 3, pulling up and in, zipping up and holding that position without moving any of the body, just concentrating on holding that position. Because if you haven't got very active core muscles, this might be difficult already, thinking which muscles, going in there and trying to work out which muscles are working, and then just let that go. But the next thing we can do is we can do it with one leg or 2 legs. We'll start with one leg. We can make sure the spine's nice and neutral. We can zip up. So 1, 2, 3, zip up and lift one leg off the ground. And then very gently feel how that's making the tension and the movement of the body slightly different. And then you can very gently start to lower that leg out and notice how the spine isn't moving, but you're still contracting. Think 1, 2, 3. And then come back and place that foot down. Let's try that on the other side. So we zip up, we lift that leg. You're going to feel that engage even further to have to lift that leg. Make sure your back's not touching the ground, although it's not overarched. And then you're going to slide that leg out and make sure that it's the tummy muscles that are doing the work and not the hip flexor groups that are having to work to hold the leg here. And then contract in as you release. Now let's put some breath with that. So we breathe in. It's very opposite to yoga. What we do when we actively do things in Pilates is we breathe in and then we zip up on the way out and pull up. It doesn't need to be that exaggerated, I suppose, but you can feel that engage. So you probably want to, with these 2 moves that we've just been doing, you want to breathe in and then zip up and then lift the leg. Breathe in. Contract back and push the leg out. Keep squeezing in the last of that breath. Inhale, lift it back in. Exhale, squeezing and letting it go back down. And again, coming back in. And 1, 2, 3, pulling up and back out. And then place that foot back down. Let's do that on the other side. So let's inhale, zipping up. Lift that foot up. Big deep breath in again. Zipping up again, making the muscles work. Inhale, coming back up. You don't really lose the tension as you come back up, but perhaps the emphasis isn't so much on it. But as we exhale again, we zip up, because that's when we're going to be doing most of the work. And then breathe back in and come back up. And again, make sure the back hasn't gone onto the ground. We're not flush with the ground, and then back out. And you can just practice that a few times when you're doing things. But if you want to take it one step further, hands onto hips or down by the sides of the body if you need that support, but try not to claw the floor. That's not how this, it's not going to benefit you, because your energy is going to go into your shoulders and not into the core. But if you can, just nice loose hands or back onto your hips, and then we're going to breathe in, neutral spine. We're going to zip up and lift both knees off the ground. Now what you might find is you bring your knees in and they're level with your hips to start with. And you might find that as you do this, your back starts to curve, or even it feels quite comfortable on the tummy, you're not having to work very hard. If you want to increase the challenge, you're going to push those knees away from you. But as you push the knees away from you, breathe in, zip up, and engage the knees in the right place. And you'll feel yourself kind of shaking. If you're weak here, you'll feel that everything's having to work. If you kind of pat on here, you know the muscles are working. There shouldn't be a dome shape through your tummy. It should be the muscles shouldn't be doming, should I say, through your stomach. So it should be engaged. There should still be a little bit of a gap underneath the back. Big deep breath in, and then zip up, lower the legs back down, and then relax. And you will feel it quite a lot. If you're starting to feel it in the lower back, that's because the muscles in the front are probably getting quite tired quite quickly, because they're not switching on properly, and the back's starting to take the strain. So it's going to be a good marker for you to know where you're at with your strength in general. But we're going to do one more time. We're going to lift the legs up and down a few times. So we're going to breathe in, contract back, lift up the legs, hold here, push them away, breathe in. We'll do one leg at a time. Exhale, just come down, either tap the toe or the heel, zipping up, inhale back up, zipping up, and back up. Last time, zipping up, and back up. And let's move on to the other side, zipping up, and back up. And again, zipping up, Keep squeezing and back up. It's more important to think about what the tummy's doing than the legs, and back up. If you want to keep that challenge going, have a rest if you need one. If not, hold here. Push those knees away from you. Keep your back neutral. Big deep breath in. Make sure your elevator floors are coming up and you're squeezing back and in. Hold. And then very gently lower and release. And just let that back go nice and soft now and relax. And you will feel there's been quite a lot of work within the pelvic floor there. If we think about that in a different way and we turn over and we come onto a plank, again, you can just stay in this position here and just kind of work through the squeezing and the feeling of it. Or you can have your knees down plank. It's interesting when people have the knees down, their bum is either high because the hip flexors group and all that is engaged rather than the core, or they're down and the lower back's taking it. So if you actually come up and find that middle point and it feels uncomfortable, take a breath in, zip up, and then find a point within the two where you can feel that zipping up is really at its most effective. You can feel it really working. And again, if you want to, you can lift the legs off the ground. But think about those floors, 1, 2, 3, up and towards the back of the body. And then come down. And then let your lower back have a release, because if you're new to this, you're going to find your lower back might feel a bit uncomfortable. Anyway, give that a go. I know there's a lot of information there, but you're going to be better with activating it properly. You can do 50 sit-ups or 50 moves without activation and just be damaging your back, and you can do 10 moves with activation and actually feel stronger and get stronger. So be more energy efficient, more active and efficient in your movement, and you'll be stronger than just doing. Less is not always more. More is not always better. Less is sometimes more, if you get what I mean. Anyway, give it a go. Thank you very much. Namaste.